guess my first question about LSAT-Flex is, do you think that this is the new normal, or how long is LSAT-Flex going to be a thing in the standardized testing space?
I would love for it to be the new normal, and I think it should be from a logistical perspective. Whether it actually is or not is totally up to LSAC, and that depends on the pandemic situation, and it also depends on their ability to administer experimental sections. I see that as being the biggest barrier to LSAT Flex forever, because if it's only 3 sections, no experimental, how do they test out future questions? So unless they can figure that out, they're going to want to go back to in-person as soon as possible.
And so the current LSAT, if I'm not mistaken, is you can take it on the computer. They're both computer-based now. Is that correct?
Well, the in-person one is actually on a tablet.
Okay.
And the online LSAT Flex is on a computer.
Okay. That makes sense. So in terms of whether or not we think this is the new normal, has there been like a specific time frame that LSAC has announced, okay, we're going to do LSAT Flex until this date? Or have they announced anything in terms of summer testing and whether that's going to be on a tablet or whether that's going to be LSAT Flex?
They announce each one individually based on how they see the pandemic unfolding at that particular point in time. So maybe a month and a half or so prior, they said, well, we're going to actually make this one a flex because we don't anticipate it being possible to do in person. So they already announced the June LSAT would be a flex. They announced that I think at the end of April. They decided on the July LSAT flex towards the end of May. And so August, they're still planning on in person, but who knows? We'll probably find out in a month or so.
Okay, that's fair. That sounds like pretty terrifying, I think, from a student perspective, and just not knowing what you're going to get. And then, so my other question, and this is how the LSAT was back when I took it, years ago before my scores expired. But when you take the LSAT at home per se, are there any like testing integrity issues that you foresee, or like what is the online proctoring experience like?
So they're using a company called ProctorU, which also has done several other online exams like advanced placement for high school, the GRE and the GMAT. They're the major game in town for this, and they require that you be on camera and in the field of view the entire time. So there's no leaving to go to the bathroom, and that's part of why LSAT Flex is shorter than the regular LSAT. No breaks under normal testing conditions. So if you have like your roommate interrupt and shout the answer's B, that's a major problem. Or if a significant other walks in, that's an interruption that they don't love for it to happen. If it's brief, it's probably okay. But that's what I see as being the biggest barrier is people you live with making noise or interrupting you, and then your internet connection. If you can control for both of those, you could probably be okay.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like internet connection, especially for folks, I don't know, I feel like internet connection for folks that don't live in major cities, for example, folks that live in more rural areas or don't have, the best internet connections where they live, they're kind of, I don't know, do you foresee there being any privilege barriers in terms of how accessible the LSAT Flex is?
Absolutely. And same goes for your device. If you don't have a good computer, that could be an issue as well. And LSAC said that they'll take care of you on that, provided you reach out. So I think the biggest barrier with regard to privilege is knowing that you can reach out and ask them for help. If you do, they will help you. They'll mail you a loaner device. And the funny thing is, tablet versus computer, LSAT Flex is computer by default, in-person is tablet by default. But for the Flex, if you don't have a good device, they will mail you a tablet. I don't know, why are they mailing you a tablet when it's computer for Flex? Who knows? But maybe they have all those tablets in storage from when it was in person. So they mail you that device if your internet's good. If your internet is not good, they'll set you up with a local law school or college, or I've even heard a hotel. They'll give you a credit to go to a hotel and take it there, and they'll reimburse you up to $125.
Okay, that's awesome. And then one of my other questions, that's what I was going to mention earlier, is that when I took the LSAT, the testing dates fill up extremely quickly. So especially for summer LSAT dates, you had to register months in advance. Have you heard, or do you foresee there being similar experiences with testing dates filling up, months in advance, even though they're going to be offered online now?
For in-person, that has been an issue for several years. Even with more testing dates, they reduced the number of seats. So you still had too much demand and not enough supply of spots. So that was an issue. But for the Flex, luckily, that's not nearly as much of an issue. I haven't heard of anything filling up with the online scheduling, and they actually give you a wide range of times.
And then how does that impact? So for example, and again, my knowledge on this is not what it was. But in terms of the writing section, is there any impact on that? Is the writing section still offered in LSAT-Flex? And, for example, do students now take it and type that and it's sent to every school? I know that it's unscored, but is there any change to that?
There's actually no change at all. It's still online. It's still proctored online, and it's a separate sitting from your actual scored LSAT. So you
Awesome.
could do it. You could do it the next day, the next week, the next month if you want. It's all the same.
Awesome. And then my, kind of overall questions. Do you think that, in terms of folks who took the traditional LSAT and folks that are taking LSAT Flex, do you think, or have you heard that a larger group of students think that this is fair or unfair, or what has kind of been the general consensus that you've observed from, zero Ls who are looking to go to law school about the changes?
I think the general consensus is that it's easier for it to be a flex and that it's not fair if you had to take in person and then somebody else gets to take the flex. So a lot of complaints about that, which I totally get, because assuming you've got a good internet connection and a good home environment, I mean, a 3-section exam from the comfort of your own home definitely seems more pleasant than 5 sections at a testing center with a proctor in person, other people there in person. So I totally get that. And there's also the perception that because it's shorter and only one logical reasoning section, that it's easier content.
Sure.
And the people at LSAC, they're psychometrics experts. They really make a big effort to make sure the LSAT is fair, and no two test administrations are vary in difficulty at all, that they should be the same. And I don't think LSAC would put this out if they didn't really believe that. They want everyone to perceive a flex score the same as a regular score. And admissions, by the way, is also confirmed they will view them the same.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like, as someone who didn't take the LSAT and for very specific reasons of having testing dates kind of fill up and having to kind of do a lot of dancing around the logistics, part of what made me more attracted to the GRE was the very specific things, or the exact things that LSAT Flex offers. So for example, the flexibility of having, being able to take it at a time that is convenient for me, or being able to take it on a computer. At the time when I took the LSAT, it was only paper-based. And that, having to go in with a weird plastic bag and highlighters and like all of the weird things that you had to do at that time, I think that within itself made it more difficult. I don't know that, the tests are like one is necessarily harder than the other. But I think the logistics around it being easier inherently make it easier. So.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that the experience of going in person, the whole build up commuting there and everything, it definitely adds on something extra aside from the content of the exam. And so I think anything that at least removes that, which is a barrier for some but not for others, can level the playing field more.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I mean, yeah. And I just have concerns mostly about like folks that don't have good internet connections. That just sounds like it could be a nightmare. But I think they're doing the best they can. And there's a lot of uncertainty obviously around COVID and law school and testing in general. So folks are just doing the best they can right now.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.